All right, time for another episode of Morning Musings. I'm just this morning. I need to clean up this area of the basement. I've let it get a little out of hand, and I really need to get my spray booth back up to paint a cabinet. So I'm going to be cleaning. And today, I've been thinking a lot about progression. You know, going along with some of the goal thoughts I had last time. Um, what is progression? What is happiness? How goals play into that. So, um, thinking about that, I think that humans, people, we find joy in progression. Now, joy in progression, I think, let me take a step back. When people when people are making progress on something, that helps them feel fulfilled. If you're not making progress on things, you don't feel fulfilled. Uh, if you're not working towards something, people often have feelings that they don't have a purpose. And so, without purpose, people are going to feel lost. And unless you like we talked about last time, if you don't link your goals to like who you are, it's hard to find that purpose. So goals, when they're tied to who we are and our identity, that is something that helps us have purpose. Now, I think that makes sense. So then the question is, what makes us feel fulfilled? I think is what helps us feel fulfilled is when we are living up or living to our standards. We don't have conflict between who we are internally and how we are externally. Now, purpose, I think that makes sense. So, setting goals is great, and we need our goals to be tied to who we are and who we identify as. And when we do that, it will help us find purpose. Now, having purpose, that's part of being happy, right? Or finding happiness. But it's not everything. Like, you have to be making progress on those goals and like living up to who we view ourselves as. And so progress is really where that kicks in. So how do we make progress on things? I've been examining this in myself for the last week or so, and I think as long as you do something to progress your goals, you're going to feel happy. Would it be nice if it goes faster sometimes? Yeah. Do we sometimes feel like we're not moving fast enough? Yes, but I think it's a separate problem to be like, okay, I'm not moving fast enough versus I'm not doing what I need to be doing, if that makes sense. So as long as we can keep in perspective our progress, we are going to feel fulfillment. Yeah. If we keep perspective on our progress, we'll feel fulfilled. Now, that's cool. And if you break it down like this, really happiness is a fairly simple equation, right? I mean, there's a lot more that plays into it, like solid relationships and stuff. But even in, say, a marital relationship or someone you're dating, if things are a little rocky, that can be pretty upsetting. But if you decide, I'm going to make progress on this every day, granted, it requires your partner to kind of meet you with this, but confront the issues kind of head on and make progress on it. How's your happiness going to be affected when you know that things have been difficult, but you're putting in the work to fix it, right? So I guess, yeah, you can have things going well, or you can be living to your standards in one part of your life, but not in another, and that can also cause like conflict in yourself. But as long as you're making progress on those things, you're going to be fulfilled and know that you're doing your part, I guess. It's always funny when you break things down like this and you're like, man, this is so simple. Why don't I just do this all the time? Well, it's easy to forget, and it's easy to get off track, so you gotta remind yourself. So maybe I'll be watching this video sometime to help remind myself. This is great. I love Paduke. It's this pretty red color on this wood. Completely natural. It's just the color of Paduke. It's a African wood. It's pretty cool. Okay. Yeah, so making progress, and consistently. So this is the next thing I was thinking about is this. Consistency is key. I think about a story I read in Atomic Habits. I think it was the book. I forget the author's name, but yeah, the book Atomic Habits. They had this example that applies here. Talking about consistency. So you want to make progress on something every day. If you make progress on it every day, you're going to be successful with it. Like, kind of period. I don't think that you could make progress every day without being successful at some point. Man, I've got a lot of stuff. Yeah, I love woodworking, and I have the space and a lot of the wood to build cabinets to store my stuff. But I haven't gotten around to building it yet. My father also liked woodworking, and he passed a little over a year ago, so I ended up with a bunch of his stuff, which is great. I just have not figured out storage quite yet. Anyway, like I was saying, progress. Yeah, Atomic Habits. So Atomic Habits shared this story about I believe it was the UK like road bike team, like cycling team. They were really not very good. They would always, I don't know what placement they would get on things, but it wasn't great. Always kind of in the back of the pack. And they got a new coach, and the new coach was like, okay, we got to make some changes. Makes sense. But where a lot of other people were like, okay, we got to get our whatever these times down to this, and we got to do this and this. He came in and he took a completely different approach. He came in and said, Okay. I don't care where we are. I don't care how fast anyone else is. What we're going to do is we're going to make a 1% improvement on something related to cycling every, I can't remember if it was week or month, but that was the idea. 1% improvement every time period. That's all. That was their only goal. 1% improvement. And one month they're like, okay, we did this thing to our bikes. We got them 1% lighter. That was their piece of improvement. And the next time period, they're like, okay, we improved our time on, say, this track by 1%. 1% is like, it seems so negligible, right? Like, how is this going to make a difference long term? And, but they did it. Like, every month they made 1% improvement. And the thing about doing an improvement like that is like, do 1%, 1%, 1%, that compounds. So like 1% today will be worth less than 1% tomorrow. And that'll be worth less than 1% the next day. And then after a year, your 1% is like, compared to the amount of improvement. Anyway, I don't know how to say that clearly. But that 1% just grew and grew into something big. And you know what? The UK race team, after a couple of years, was winning their races, not coming in the back of the pack on their races. And that's pretty impressive, so that someone came in, it's not like they weren't trying or something, but someone came in and just was like, nope, let's make 1% improvement. And that was the difference for them being able to pull off those races. But I think that applies pretty well to us. 1% improvement just applied to us is, hey, maybe we don't have things, sorry about that. Maybe we don't have things as well defined where we can just be like, oh yeah, we've made 1% improvement. But if we can just be like, we've made progress every day, like what does that compound into? What does that grow into? What does that do to your goals over the long term? And the answer is, you meet those goals. And this kind of idea, like people need to make progress and grow. It, I think applies a little bit to like what sometimes we look at people, or maybe not we, but I hear people talk about others and be like, man, they work too hard, or they care too much about this thing, or like, is nothing ever good enough for them? Like, they've achieved this big thing, but now they want to go do this. And I don't know, maybe sometimes those people are just not appreciating their accomplishment or whatever. But I think a lot of time, maybe they are just progressing. They achieved their thing and now they're moving on to the next thing, and that's how they that's how they find purpose and joy and stuff, right? So I think, I don't know, I thought a bit about that lately because I've seen a lot of that over my life. Ugh, it's heavy. Really need to build those cabinets. Okay. Okay. Probably like the last thing I want to talk about is just still building on the progress idea, because I've done that this week, And that's what I've talked about this stuff over the last few days, is that I realized I've not been living up to what I think my abilities are. In the past, I've done things like, I'm a pretty productive person. I like to keep on the move. It's not like I always need to be doing something, but I have a lot of interests. I have a lot of responsibilities, and I tend to just work on that stuff, work on myself. It's like, I like woodworking, I like reading, I like cooking, I like spending time with my family. And if I want to do all those things, I don't want to spend my time sitting around. Like, it's not really relaxing for me to just, sit on the couch and not do anything. I do really like movies. I grew up watching a lot of movies with my dad, and I have a lot of fond memories and associations with that. But like, that was always something that was like part of the like family time, right? And so I view that as a little bit, it's not just sitting not doing anything as long as I'm with someone. But I like all these things, and I want to do these things, right? And in order to do all those things, I got to do them. And there was a time that, I don't know, sometimes my ability to like keep moving like that can make people uncomfortable. Like, they wonder, what am I doing? Why can't they keep moving like that? Or they'll try to keep up with my activity levels, and it's not really sustainable for them because that's not the type of person they are, right? But I would like kind of, I don't know, feel guilty about that. Like their guilt, I'm like, oh, I feel guilty that you feel guilty. The way I can make you not feel guilty is if I'm not moving as much or moving as fast or accomplishing as much, right? And so I would sort of back off from that. So I would constrain my ability for the comfort of others. And that wasn't good for me. That was, I don't know, that was something I view as immature. And I've now recognized that, and I'm like, nope, I'm not going to do that anymore. That's for sure. And so that's been nice to realize, and I've really like leaned into that over the last week, and it's been like very invigorating. Like, oh, I'm living more to who I am and what I need, rather than, and if people aren't handling that well, that's kind of their responsibility to work out. Like I've now worked out my part, and I'm not like judgmental or like, oh, why isn't everyone doing what I'm doing? But I am like, hey, I'm going to do my thing because that's who I am. And you do your thing. And those don't have to be the same things. And that makes some people uncomfortable, I've learned, is that they think if everyone's not doing it or can't do it or whatever, that means they must be doing something wrong. But that's not true. So I guess, yeah, I've settled in on, I know what my limits are and what I need. And as long as I'm making progress on those things, I'm going to feel fulfilled and happy. And that is good. And I've gotten a lot of stuff done that I've been putting off for a long time because reasons, and I feel like so much more energized and excited about basically everything. It's kind of awesome. And it then that's why I've been thinking about goals and progression and things like that, is that that's what I'm experiencing right now. Is I've set goals, I've identified how those apply to me, I've identified the pain that's going to help drive me to these things, help drive me. And with that, now I'm leaning into the progression, and it's kind of great. Anyway, yeah, think about it. Share some thoughts if you have any. I don't know if anyone's going to watch this or what, but I'll probably watch it in the future. It's fun to see what my thought processes were and what's going on. Anyway, those are my morning musings for today. Thanks, guys.